Hello. The review you are about to see is of a movie of a very adult and graphic nature. Plus, there may be light to medium sized spoilers in the movie. So, if you are not of age, if you are not of the kind of mental type to handle subject matters such as the stuff in this animated movie, which it's not very often that we do very adult things here in Code Equestria, but I guess this is one of those times. If you're not into spoilers or adult things, leave now. This is your chance to get out. If you are of age and mental altitude, and you don't care slightly about spoilers, then please enjoy the review you are about to see. Thank you. Welcome to Kadic Reviews. It's not very often we do a very adult movie here, and it's definitely not often that we do a comic book movie around here. The last time we did one, it was Deadpool. But for this, it's different. I'm not the biggest comic fan. Shoot, I don't read many comics outside of the MLP comics. Shoot, I don't play many comic book games. The last one I actually did play was Arkham Origins. That's how far back I go. But it just so happens that we are talking about a Batman movie today. The most recent from WB Animation, known as Batman the Killing Joke. Now, for those in the comic know, and trust me, I have not read the actual graphic novel in which this hour and 17-minute movie is loosely based upon. A seminal comic back in the mid-80s when I was about 2 years old. This comic was one of the first to get dark and gritty. For those that know the story in the comic book world, though, is without question one of the biggest shock value comics in the history of the industry, especially for a comics brand known as DC, let alone a Batman story. Many people have wanted to adapt this world famous novel into something, and now the guys at WB Animation have, using the powerhouse voice cast of Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill of Batman the Animated Series, a series that I used to watch every single weekday on Vox Kids. And, of course, the voice behind my beloved, the powerhouse goddess herself, Tara Strong, taking on the signature role of Barbara Gordon. The Killing Joke is WB's Animation's attempt to try to do, let's be honest, a difficult job in most people's eyes, adapting one of the most seminal comic books in history into an animated movie tour de force. In some aspects, it accomplishes this with plum and applause and bigness, while in other aspects, it falls short. You could say The Killing Joke is not one Batman story, it's two. Mainly the first 20 minutes of the film centers around Barbara Gordon as Batgirl, chasing down and getting way too close to a family gangster con man known as Paris, France. nephew to a wealthy crime boss in Gotham City with a little bit of attraction to her, while spitting flirty one-liners along the way. Barbara crosses the hypothetical line and goes too far, not only in one area, but in two. One being an infamous scene of internet conversation as of late. Now, I will break down and tell you my individual opinion of the scene in question. Sure, it is a total break in the normal character of Barbara Gordon, and that is unforgivable. The sexualization part of it, I can understand how most classic comic book fans would get offended by this, but of course, this is a much darker graphic novel. And the graphic novel itself is much more dark than this, even by looking at some of the panels that I've seen in other reviews of the famous comic book when it's brought up. The comic is much darker and crosses many lines, but even for animation's sake, it's right on the border of it. And the scene in question, yes, is tasteless and out of character, but not out of situation. The situation is out of frustration. Barbara wants to be looked at as an equal to Bruce, to prove her worth, and her frustration and madness of not being treated this way, plus an unrequited attraction to Bruce, leads to the scene in question. A moment of mistake, rushed judgment, and ill-advised brain use. But a moment that also reflects that unlike Bruce Wayne, Barbara Gordon is still very much human, very much emotional, very different from Bruce. That's why you sympathize not only with the mistake, but the reason, and her want to bring the evil France down. But it's the endings of this case that end Barbara Gordon's stint as the titular Batgirl. But also the many different sexual innuendos and use of words in the first frame is rather disturbing and distasteful. It shows a lack of writing understanding and goes right for the heavy jugular without relying on the writing context to create it. It's without a dose of subtlety or proper planning. It's just adult language for the sake of adultness, which makes it come off as a waste in a lot of areas. As for the main plot of the movie that kicks off about the 22-minute mark, it starts fast with the Joker's untold escape once again from the clutches of Gotham authorities. He wastes no time trying to prove a point, going right to Commissioner Gordon's doorstep, stepping shooting Barbara Gordon in the waist, paralyzing her for life. As a disabled person myself, I can hardly imagine an able-bodied person's reaction to the loss of their emotional and sanity, as well as their ability to move or do anything without the assistance of a chair. It's devastating and shows just how brutal and cold that the Joker is. And the reason, to prove a point. He even goes borderline there. And because Kodic is a family channel, I'll just leave it at that. But let's just say the movie pulls no punches and goes directly for the jugular, wanting Joker to be stopped. But even in its to prove a point, we are once again given the backstory of this twisted mind and why he became so. Sure, it's the most common part of the story, but there are some changes. The Joker was a down and out comedian expecting a kid with his lover Jenny. But he was about to get kicked out of his apartment at the wrong time. He decides to take on a criminal job back at his old work. Of course, as the story goes, not only in the movie, but in all the comics proper, thanks to Batman, the job goes horribly wrong. And the Clown Prince of Crime is born. As Batman does his typical aggressive detective work, Joker plans his final punchline as the two actually debate through an excellent set of dialogue by Kevin Conroy whether they are destined to kill each other in the end. Although in the meantime, a kidnapped Commissioner Gordon is driven to the point of madness through a delightful, twisted song called I Get Loony, which is ironic considering this is a WB movie. But sadly, the conflict goes rushed. Very quick, very sudden, and very rushed to the payoff. It even ends on a sudden, subtle, and ironically funny and dark note, with the hero and arch-villain laughing their heads off at a rather simple joke. It's brutal irony. In fact, this whole movie is brutal irony. As we see once the end credits roll, the beginning of the character we know from Birds of Prey and Arkham Asylum as Oracle. The voice acting, of course, as you would expect, is no less than top-notch, although the animation is not in that similar place. And of course, due to the many writing inconsistencies of the first plot, plus the many rushed jobs to the end of the main Killing Joke plot, a movie that shouldn't be stretched for time feels this way. Although the adult themes definitely come through due to its dark action scenes and its even darker color palette, plus its more serious tone of the character deliveries. This is one of the darker Batman animated films, to be sure, without a doubt. And for those that have not read the comic before, I would not suggest just not actually reading the graphic novel. The novel is always better. You get more depth, more color, more lines. Even for a person that hasn't read it, I can't help but to feel that something is missing when watching The Killing Joke. but it isn't without its high points, and it isn't without its effort. Many of the voice actors, animators, and crew really worked hard to try to do an impossible task. Although this movie falls short of some of the earlier Warner Brothers animated films and falls short of the graphic novel it's atoned to, it's still a dark, gritty, and shocking watch. Although if the writing and script were better and given more proper context and better use of words, The Killing Joke would be, just as its graphic novel implies, elegance. There is elegance here, but it's not elegance across the board, which causes the movie to fall flat. But for any Batman fan that has definitely read the graphic you might feel a little differently coming out of it. But at least for something deemed impossible, they got most of it right. And that's not worthy of a laugh or two, but it's worthy of your attention. Batman the Killing Joke gets a 6 out of 10. Read the graphic novels. You'll have a better time. And, of course, there are much better Batman and Joker stories out and about. Until next time, with Kadic Reviews. I have not had a bad day in my life. I've just had a bad life with a series of good days. But I find peace, like I hope you will, in my own nirvana. Thanks for watching.